Well, here we are, all these places that we are. It's just, it's always a reality check every time I I start something like this. Can you all hear me all right? That's first thing. Sounds good? Great. Um, and God, it's nice to see some of you I know already, and some of you I don't. Renata, a long time. Yeah, Paula. Wow, cool. And Leah. I, so we're kind of from all over the place here. It's an interesting thing that's kind of happened with. It used to be that our community was kind of geographically based, and now it's not. And that's fine, but we're all just kind of trying to figure out how to navigate this. Um, so this is the second of four kind of non-consecutive theme fiddle workshops, and so the kind of theme this week is West Virginia music, and which is um, it's hard to cover 200 years of old time music history in 90 minutes, but I'd just love to kind of give you a just kind of a taste of what it was like. And this is going to be fiddle music from between the 20s, 1920s, and maybe 40s or 50s. Um, it was interesting. I play a lot of music from a lot of these fiddlers, and did never really had any idea who knew each other. It seems like before people got around very much, West Virginia was pretty rural. But it turns out all the high level players that got recorded commercially and for folk archives and things like that, they all knew about each other, and they caught licks from each other. And I was really surprised to hear that, for instance, if you're familiar with Clark Kessinger, who was one of the most revered of the fiddlers, um, that he knew all about Ed Haley. And Ed Haley was, of course, a blind musician who never left very far, went very far from home, and he lived in Ashland, Kentucky, right across the line most of his life. But that Kessinger had at least sought him out and learned tunes from him. Um, Haley wouldn't go. He got asked to play it. I think he got asked to record for a commercial label, and at that time they were only paying a flat fee to make a recording, and then it belonged to the recording company. And Haley wasn't having any part of it. He says, "No, I want a royalty if you sell a lot of records," and they turned him down. And so he was never commercially recorded, which is kind of interesting. But there are all these kind of little stories that go along, and um, Clark Kessinger taught Bobby Taylor, and if you've been to Clifftop Fiddlers Convention in August, Bobby Taylor's the guy that's been running it since it started. There's all these connections. So I made a I made an iTunes playlist, and of course, if I played you the whole thing, we'd never get around to fiddling. But I'd love to just play you a couple of clips of just short little clips of things, just to give you an idea of the kind of breadth and depth of how people played. The thing that drives me kind of crazy is and this is just an aside, is that there I don't know whether women didn't play the fiddle or whether it was not well documented, but there's not enough instances in archive recordings of women fiddlers, and that drives me a little nuts because I teach at Berklee College of Music, and I would say a half to two-thirds of my fiddle students are female, which is great. It's nice to see it moving in that direction, but it's obviously somebody's pulling a load here to make that happen, and anyway, it's just something that is always really apparent to me. Um, so the best work, I'll just give you my 10-cent spiel, which I do at the beginning of everything, but um, the best workshops for me have always been conversations. And although I would hope you keep yourselves muted just because of the background noise, if you have anything to add, please unmute yourself and just jump in, because I'll just kind of keep going and going because I like this stuff and want to show it to you. But if you have questions, or something's not clear, or if I'm pushing you too hard, I'll talk a little bit in a moment about how I teach. Some of you have been through it before, um, but I have a certain way that I like to present the stuff, and it's kind of like if you've ever watched any of these celebrity chefs, deconstructing chocolate pies to look like fried chicken. It's kind of like that. Um, anyway, we'll talk about that in a sec. Uh, Everybody okay? You can hear me. Let me just start with. There's so many great fiddle. Let me start with a tune that a whole lot of people play, but that has really evolved as it kind of got into the festival kind of top 10 circuit. But this is French Carpenter. He's a West Virginia fiddler. Um, he was the son of a great fiddler named Solly Carpenter, and and played a lot of the tunes that people really consider to be important in the West Virginia repertoire. So this is him playing Elzic's Farewell.
This is an old timer, Elric's Farewell.
Can you hear it okay?
As far back as I know, about 125 years old. It was brought to this country by my great-great-grandfather.
So there's so much going on. I mean, so many ways to take something like this apart. If you really want to try and wrap yourself around what makes West Virginia music kind of unique, um, a lot of these fiddlers were solo musicians, and as a result of that, and you can go down through almost all of them. Uh, French Carpenter, Ed and Hammonds, uh, Glenn Smith, John Johnson. They all like. If you've heard Elzic's Farewell before, you've heard it as a tune that is kind of square, and yet every time you hear French Carpenter play it through, he adds beats or breaths between phrases, and sometimes not the same way twice. Um, if you and to me, that's a great thing. If you've ever heard Burl Hammonds, who was somebody I was lucky enough to visit, he's the one that gave us Big Coyote, which is kind of the strongest 32 bar fiddle tune that you ever heard. But if you ever heard him play it, it came out different every time. Hope I'm mixing it up. So any sense of, 4 8 bar parts is out the window with this music. And it's true for a lot of them. So that's like when you listen to French Carpenter, that's one of the first things you hear. But there are fiddlers that were even more kind of extreme with that. Let me play you. Um, let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Ed and Hammonds was another one, part of a great musical family, and they were Ulster Scots that emigrated down through the Ohio Valley into Middle West Virginia, probably in the early 1800s. And Eden was kind of the patriarch of the family with respect to people kind of getting interested in the fiddling. And he was recorded in '47 for the archives by a man named Lewis Chappell in West Virginia. And he called this Sugar in the Gourd. I'm really not sure why, because it doesn't sound like any sugar in the gourd I know. But listen for the extra beats in this.
It's a good night.
I just love the way that he used those. He was an AEAE there, or that string relationship, and I just love the way he uses those big open chords on the bottom to just make the whole fiddle ring. Another kind of characteristic of that kind of music, and I use that stuff all the time in my playing. Um, Maybe I can just play you one more little thing because I'd love to jump into a tune. Um, I got to ask: is there anybody for whom this music is completely a foreign object? Is it brand new to any of you? A little bit? Okay. Um, Tell me, it's Laurie. What style, what kind of fiddling do you do? I mean, are you a folk fiddler or classical violinist or
Cape Breton style usually. So very, very no extra beats.
no extra beats? Right, right. And you only play the tunes twice and then you move on to the next one.
Exactly, right?
I
Right.
know that style. Okay. Well, I mean, so much of this music, like, uh, has the same roots as Cape Breton. A lot of it has Scottish, kind of Scottish elements. I guess the big difference in the American stuff is that it has the banjo and the rhythms and the tonalities that go with the banjo that aren't in Cape Breton music. But um, I know a lot of the Cape Bretoners. I knew Buddy McMaster years ago, and he he was one of those that felt like the Cape Breton music was really the proper authentic preservation of Scottish music, and that Scottish music in Scotland had all changed, but somehow it stayed the same in Cape Breton. And I always politely agreed with that, but I'm not sure. I really don't know. um, yes.
Um, French Carpenter was talking about how his great great grandfather brought Elzic's Farewell over to the U.S. Where was he from?
I don't know. I don't know where his family was from. And if you listen down through those I have a lot of recordings of him where he announces some of the tunes, and you wonder kind of how much of it is fact and how much of it is fiction. And no doubt that his great grandfather played the fiddle. Did he write it? I don't know. It's possible. But that kind of stuff, I mean, if you really want to get serious, it kind of needs to be corroborated. It's just great to hear the stories, you know.
Hi, Bruce. I had a question around just cross tuning in general. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't, so my background is classical and then kind of started focusing on Celtic and Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But with cross tuning in general, is that, maybe it's just part of the style and it's just more common in the style, but is there more historical significance around it, or why, or just in general?
I don't know how it originated in the music, but I mean, cross tuning is not confined to folk music. I mean, Bieber wrote those 11 classical scordatura pieces a long, long time ago, and it makes a lot of sense, you know, to tune a fiddle different ways. I mean, some people, a lot of people have different attitudes about it, and I can play a very funny clip from the fiddler Emmett Lundy talking about how fiddlers who tuned their fiddles weren't good fiddlers; they just couldn't play any other way, which of course it was his thing. But I just like the way it changes the resonance and the timbre of the instrument, and when I first learned to play, nobody told me not to do that. I just watched what other people were doing. I play in probably 13 or 14 tunings, and it's I think it's just another thing to use. And if you want to honor tradition in any kind of way, it's nice to play those tunes in the same tunings that the old people played them in. So, and I was hoping, if you all are into it, to teach you something today in a cross tuning.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, great.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, it's kind of interesting because I've been playing bluegrass for quite some time now, you know, having been a recovered classical player after a lot of years. But but the thing is, it's so funny. You learn these fiddle tunes, and I really didn't know the difference. Yeah, you hear old time and all that, but to really know the difference, and there are so many tunes, like, you know, you were playing Big Coyote. And so, yeah, I know that, improvise on it, jam on it, and everything else. But to play that version, and then, you know, playing with Matt Brown a bunch on some of these things, and, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, there's all these different versions. Which one is the right one? And now I don't care. I want to play all of them. And, you know, we blaspheme, shove that pig's foot by improvising off of it in jams now. So it's been an accepted bluegrass thing. But then I don't know. I do guess have a question in all this, is like, where does it come from? What can you really do? And if you're in an old time situation, like my first old time jam, I finished after I called a tune, played it, you know, we played, and then finished after 2 times, and everybody looked at me like, you're done? You're not supposed to do that. It's like, how many times are we supposed to play through it? I don't know.
Right,
So
right. Well,
typically
you know,
play through 5 times. Did not. I don't know, but it's, again, I don't know if it's a question or a comment. Maybe you can just speak to what to do with all these different versions that are flying around, and which is the right one, what should you rely on in terms of like a good version.
You know, I can think of a really kind of a weird story that really doesn't have a punchline, but I've heard different versions of this, and yeah, to wrap yourself around any kind of style, you have to have a whole lot of context. And what I'd like to do after this class is to maybe send you a playlist of things, because I spend more time listening than I do playing. And so you start to get a sense of what you think is appropriate to the style and what isn't, right? And then you just make your choices. And so I think about the story of the Chinese jade master and his apprentice, you know, sitting there with a pile of jade rocks in front of him. And the apprentice picks up a rock and says, "Master," he says, "how do I know good jade?" And the master takes the rock and hands it back to the apprentice and says, "Well, look at this." And he does, and he puts it down, and he picks up another piece of jade. And he says, "Well, master, how can I tell if this is good jade?" And the master takes it from him and looks at it and says, "Well, look at this." And that's the whole story. The more you look and the more you look, the more you kind of cultivate a sense of what that is like, you know. And I think it's true. Is there a proper version of certain things? It depends who you ask. Some people are really kind of hardcore about, it ain't right if you don't play it like old man so and so. But a lot of times it's not true, you know. The tune Cherokee Shuffle is a great example because it was a takeoff on the tune Lost Indian, which is a traditional tune with an extra part that has an extra beat written by Tommy Jackson and recorded in 1950. So, yeah, if you want to play Cherokee Shuffle the way it goes, play his version. But there's lots of other nice versions of it. And if you go to a jam session, nobody plays it in A, and everybody plays it with 3 parts instead of 2. So, I don't have a good answer to that question other than just experientially, The other thing is that in bluegrass, it's soloing is such a big part of it. So the idea of just playing a melody over and over and over and over and over again, it doesn't suit. I mean, bluegrass was the commercialization of music that wasn't commercial to start with. They took the form of early jazz where you play a theme and take turns soloing and come back to the theme at the end. Old time music never did that. It didn't need to, So that changes the whole kind of aesthetic of it too. But I love to play a tune until I'm done, and that could be 2 minutes or it could be 15 minutes.
Well, thank you for just talking about that because
Okay, sure.
it's very, and I hope everybody else appreciated or is okay with me wanting to go in that direction, just to really ask you and just make that
Yeah.
statement, because there was a little confusion, and so it's nice to just know that these worlds all live together, and it's so nice to do it all because there's joy in each little different
And
nuance.
the great old time fiddlers didn't really see a strong distinction between what they did and the bluegrass people. It's those of us who have to kind of define ourselves, by I play old time music, therefore I don't do these other things. I kind of learned about halfway through my musical journey that doesn't work. That we're all influenced by everything that's around us. I think it's great, So we should get on the music. Another fiddler who I really, really loved, his name was Melvin Wine. He was from Copen, West Virginia. He was one of he died probably, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago. He had a great repertoire. He learned to play from his dad. He was just a really nice guy that everybody loved. And I just discovered, because I thought about him, might like to teach a tune, I discovered that I recorded him in 1992. And didn't even know I had this stuff. But I think this would be a fun tune to start with because it's very Melvin, it's very happy. It's called Black Cat in a Briar Patch. Let's check it out.
Cat in a briar patch? Yeah, I'll try that. One of the first things I ever played.
Now his fiddle is tuned low, but he's playing in G shape. How about that? It's a nice little tune to get started on. It's got that sneaky extra beat that separates the parts. Key of G and modulates the C in the B part. And this you know, a lot of the fiddle styles are really bowing intensive, and we talk about bowing patterns and things like that that underpin the melodies. We can talk about bowing a little bit once we get there, but it's a little bit different than this music. And if you ever had the opportunity to listen to a fiddler like Wilson Douglas, he was another one of these great West Virginia fiddlers. You know, he would lead his phrases in a different direction every single time and play them different all the time. And it was just a matter of how he felt the melody, you know. Melvin was I kind of picked Melvin because he was a little more predictable, but not much. Ah. And like that. So let's just take a bit of melody at the time, and the analogy that anybody who's taken a workshop with me probably thinks I'm a broken record, which I am, but really consider these phrases the way you'd consider a sentence in spoken language. You know, you can come at this from any style of music. Every style of music is like that. You know, where's the breath that separates the musical sentences? And the phrases are really easy to find in this tune. Breath. So let's just start. I'll just play this first phrase a couple of times, and we can just, in fact, we can. I'll just play it and let you play it back and forth, and then we can just cycle through it a little bit and tell me if I need to go faster, slower, longer, shorter, whatever. Okay, so here goes. I'm just going to start with that till you get used to this, and then we'll extend the phrases. Okay? And then I'm going to jump up. So you get your C and your C sharp in there. So I'll just cycle that a little bit. Again. Once more. Is that okay? Can I go on? Let's see. So the beginning of the next phrase, we'll do it like that. And then once that C sharp again. So the whole phrase is this. So going from the top, feeling all right? Questions? All right. Well, the form of this A part is just A, B, A, C. So the first and third phrase are the same. So after the second phrase, we'll play the third. I will do a Melvin ending. So we're going to play it like this. And the pickup is F sharp. So play this now. That okay? And finally, so let's back it back up one phrase. And the ending. And I'm hoping I'm being reasonably consistent on the melody. I just realized I haven't played this in a long time. Any questions? We can cycle through the A part a few times. All right, here we go. One. Is this a good tempo? Start at that and see if we can bump it up just a smidge once it looks like you're comfortable, because I can't hear you. So 1, 2, 3. Back to the top. Once more. And pick it up a little. How's that going? Comments, questions? Need to play it more? No? Yes? Yeah, Renata?
I don't get that, the ending of the first time.
Well, I guess I'm playing it two ways, but that?
That's the one.
All right, here. Just kind of goes up and down. Or you can play. I think you did it both ways. But let's just stick to the one way. Did that help? Okay. Let's play the part once or twice more, and then I'll give you the B part. So 1, 2, 3. double stops in the bottom. Then the C, G, and the extra beat. Okay, so we're gonna roll on up to the C. Sorry. And if you want to really be traditional, you can double your E note and slide up to it on the A. I use that without even thinking all the time. And then so it's and there's not much pulse in here like you'd hear on like round peak music or more syncopated kinds of music. This is pretty straight. Once more. All right. Now, so I've got the B against the D. I'll break that up. Once more. Now, finishing the phrase out. So starting on G, play this little bit. All right? So putting that second phrase together. Take that a couple of times slow. Everybody doing okay with this? Bobby, I don't see you playing. What's up?
Yeah, I'm very I'm not getting this one very well, so I'm not going to hold up the workshop. I've got the recording to catch up with.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not super strong with G tunes. I don't hear them as easy, so I'll just have to work harder. Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Well, I'm gonna send you all a little, just an MP3 at the end of the class of the thing played slowly.
Perfect.
And, by all means, if you run into trouble after the workshop's over, write to me. 'Cause I want you to at least get some of it.
Yeah, no, I love the tune, so appreciate you
Okay.
asking.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's the only gauge that I have is if I see somebody not playing is to say why. So it's all good. It's all good. Okay. So here's the first two phrases of the B part. So 1, 2, 3, and. Once again. Now same form as the A part. So we'll play that first phrase again. Now here's the tag. there's 5 beats in that. So it's back down to that 5 chord, the B against the D. Let's just get the first sort of half of it. Great. And here's the end of it. So we can go from starting on G. And I'm grabbing the I'm fingering a double stop between a B and an E, just so that I can play that keeping that E down through the entire last couple of notes. Because the chords are kind of important in this. So it's right here. Okay, so let's back that back one phrase to the middle of the B part. Once again. For top of the B part. One more time. Cool. Anybody remember the A part? Shall we run it down from the top? I'll start it. Just jump in when you're ready. Stop me with any questions, please. This all feels so funny to me. We just had our first social visit in 7 weeks, and my friend Tony Trishka came and sat 12 feet across from me in the backyard, and we tried to play a tune together. And each of us kept getting quieter because we couldn't hear the other. And the next thing we knew, we were both playing so quietly that neither of us could hear each other. Okay, I'll just start in here slow. it up a little. One more time. Try it. Sometimes you got to get these things closer to tempo to really feel how they go. Any thoughts, questions? Y'all okay with this? Good. It's a nice little tune. Melvin's tunes were kind of cute. They were kind of sweet.
I have one question.
Yes, please.
What kind of beer is Renata drinking?
Ah,
That is not beer.
Oh,
That is Virgil's zero sugar root beer.
ah, okay.
Friend, it's 12:30.
oh,
That's what made me wonder.
it's always 5 o'clock somewhere though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Cocktails. Let's not go down that route till later. Paul is smiling. So let me play you another fiddler, and I thought if you'd like to do something that has kind of more of a rhythmic component and in a cross tuning, this is a fiddler named John Johnson, and he was from a place called Strange Creek, which I always thought was cool. And he played this. There are a lot of different versions of a tune with the same title. They're closely related enough to you can tell that they probably had the same origin somewhere, but everybody's way of playing this was different. This is called Shelving Rock, and John Johnson is playing it in AEAE. I thought this would be a fun one to do. It's pretty aggressive. I like that one. Yeah, yeah, Leah. Or what's that? Whatever. Yeah. So for this one, we're going to get in AEAE. So, anybody ever not played in standard tuning before? Is this a new thing? Okay. So, what we want to do is tune your D up to E. And I would really suggest, if especially if you don't know if your fiddle's going to like this, is before you tune the string up, just release it slightly down first, so that lets the string relax out of the grooves in the nut and the bridge, and then tune it slowly up to E, and then your G same way on up to A. And of course that's going to change the tension on all the other strings in the tailpiece, so it's all going to be out of tune, and then you have to kind of adjust it. If you're not using a tuner, I just use the strobe. And this is A, and it's really close to what he was playing on the recording. A lot of these recordings were not played back at the right speed, or the fiddlers didn't tune to anything. Just wait till it looks like everybody's done. All good? So if you kind of take that tune apart structurally, it's just two kind of normal length parts separated by just a little turnaround piece in the middle. The part goes. We can talk all about intonation here, because you could hear his intonation was crazy, but it was really consistent. But here, let me just play it with all the kind of embellishment pulled out of it, and just listen for the structure of it, because it's actually it's kind of easy to break it down. And the turnaround, and the B part. Right there. So the third part cuts itself a little short, but the first part is just the same sort of form as the last tune we did. So if you've not played in this tuning before, you're immediately going to notice that the distance between the middle two strings is now a fourth, and you'll quickly discover that the notes weren't where you thought they were on the lower strings. But so let's just start with the first bit of melody in the A part. Take the first little bit of that. I'll just cycle that. I'm going to get into the bowing in this too. One more time, and now. So the second half of that 8-part phrase is, and I'm going to put a G as a pickup on the end of that. Okay, so the whole phrase then is this. We can cycle this just until you're ready. Okay? Now, and that's when you go to grab that A, you'll notice right away if you haven't played in this tuning. So the last bit of that is, so the second phrase then is this. Once again. Now let's play the first two phrases. I'm going to start on the downbeat, but you're going to find that when we cycle back into these parts, a lot of times you have to anticipate and play that first bow stroke early. And it's better to just discover it rather than to try and explain it. But okay, so starting at the top, 1, 2, 3, and. I'll start from the top again. Okay, this tune is called Shelving Rock. I'm just reading the chat. Just put on new strings, perfect way to get them whipped into shape and kill them sooner. Yes. So is the melody kind of straightforward? Because we can start to talk about, the drumstick, which is a really important thing for these fast kind of dance tunes. And I've got my own way of bowing this stuff, and having never seen John Johnson play, I don't know of any films of him or anything. It sounds to me like he's pretty consistent. We want to be able to start these phrases on a downstroke. So here's how I would suggest you bow it. That first slide into the A, and then slur of 2 up, and then we're going to go right into what we call a shuffle, which is just the bluegrass shuffle, the old time shuffle. So it's going to be long, short, short, long, short, short. So it's like this. So it's down, slur 2, and then short, short, long, short, short, long, short, short. And if you're doing it like I'm doing it, you should end up on the upstroke. Starting down. We can cycle this. And going on. Now I'm going to play down, up, down, up, down, up. We can do it like that. Slur up, down, up, down, up. So there's only one slur in that, the way I'm playing it in that entire section, and it's on a string crossing, of course. So down, up, up, down, up, down, up. Once more. So going from the top, shuffle, long, short, short, long, short, short, down, up, down, up, down, up, Everybody doing okay? All going well in Italy there, Paolo? Cool. Great. It's great to see you. So we end that phrase up, and now that little turnaround part. Now you can have your own kind of personal G, somewhere G between a G and a G sharp in this, and this is really microtonal music in a lot of ways. I really encourage you to listen to the. I'll send you the source recording of this, and just listen to how much incredible tension, good tension that puts in the music. I use that intonation stuff all the time in my playing. I know some people think that wow, that's really cool, and some people say, wow, that really makes my teeth hurt. It's just a personal choice, right? Also, the third note of the scale is just a little bit flatted. This is really common in this music. So, but here, just play the straight notes to the phrase. You can interpret that any way you want to. I'm going to double the E, slide, and you can bow it like me. The whole idea is to just end up on the upstroke. Start down, down, up, slur, up, down, up. Once again, one slur in there. So you've got right. It's kind of anathema to West Virginia music that I'm making you play this as a down bow style piece where we lead all the phrases with a downstroke, because that's really not nearly as strongly a part of the tradition, down bow fiddling, as it is in a lot of other places. But it's just kind of how I play. Whatever I show you is it's not a prescription. It's just a way to do it. So far we've got. part. Play through that one time. So 1, 2, 3, and... and on into the next part. Everybody okay up to there? Thoughts, questions? Nobody's challenging me on the way that I cycle back from the first A to the second A. But you'll get it. You know, the way he played it, he drops a bow stroke and plays through the downbeat. Just listen to this. Try just for fun. Just that turnaround from the first A to the second A. So down, up, down. That's really his alternate way of starting this tune. Turn around. All right. Next bit. Before I say it's straightforward, I think it is. Same thing again. And it does it again. And it grabs the ending from the previous part. So we've got a one phrase that gets played twice, or one set of phrases that gets played twice. First part of that thing again, and then the old ending. It helps to parse these things out. So here's where we get to ring that big fat open chord on the bottom. We can break that down. Now this is a straight shuffle bowing, but watch. Just try that much. So down, up, down, slur, down, up, and then and we're just going to play down, up, down, up. So we've got this isn't the only way to bow it. But just take that as a start. And then the second phrase. Is that clear as mud? All right, so And once again, it's the same bowing as the first phrase. It starts with the shuffle, long, short, short, long, short, short, down, up, down, up. So putting those two phrases together, so it's now let's change the second phrase. Which is a cool thing that he does sometimes, and what he's doing is he's combining two other phrases in other parts of the tune. Because remember that we end the part like this, and it stops short. But the first time he plays through it, he completes it. Can you play that? We can call that the variation. So to put this in context, from the top of the part I would go first ending, second time through, then the variation. And then same top and that's how he played it. Can we go through all of that? Any questions? I'll try to talk you through it as we go along. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and first ending, variation, and here's where it stops short. There's your entire B part section. Once more on that? Okay. Twice more on that? Whatever you want. So 1, 2, 3, and all right. So now let's try that. Let's just go from that. 1, 2, 3, and now the turnaround. Third part. I'd like to pick it up just a smidge, but tell me first if it's going okay for you. Are there any trouble spots? Everybody all right? You're quiet. You're kind of giving me this. What's not clear? There's just a lot of information.
Can we just do the B section one more time for
Yeah.
with turnaround, I think.
Yeah, sure. That part, Paul? Yeah, okay. So 1, 2, 3, and. We can do it again if you want. Sure. Let's tell you what. Let's play through that B part again and then back into the A's. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, and. A. Top. One more time. Let's take a rest. Valiant. There's a lot in that tune. But, you know, like anything, don't be overwhelmed by the totality of it, you know. Just take little bits of it. And that's how I've always pieced this stuff together, you know. Start with the melody when the phrasing makes sense. Match the bowing to emphasize the phrasing. Then you can start adding all the double stops and start thinking about all those crazy intonation things. Or a tune like this really doesn't have very much in the way of ornamentation. No left-hand trills. It doesn't have that kind of Scottish, Irish, you know, bow cuts and stuff like that. It's a very, very fluid, straight ahead. I think he was a great fiddler. But thoughts, questions? I wish we had time to do another. I'll play you the one. What's that? Go ahead.
What's the tune called again?
That tune is called Shelving Rock. And if you go up, I'll send you a few different Shelving Rocks. Everybody played it different. Ed Hammond's the great fiddler, played it in G, and it's kind of the same thing, but not. If we had time, I was going to teach you this tune. I'll play it for you anyway. It's in this tuning. And another kind of beloved fiddler that a lot of folks got to meet. I didn't get to meet him, but they really. Have you ever heard the tune Elk River Blues? It's pretty popular tune in the kind of jammy scene. He wrote it. His name was Ernie Carpenter. Another one of the Carpenter clan, like French Carpenter and Solly Carpenter. And but he played this tune, and I don't know if he wrote it or not, but I've always liked it a lot. It's called Granddad's Favorite. I just think that's a pretty little tune. It's got that extra stuff in the B part, and we talk about some tunes being soulful. I think that tune actually has a conscience, but that's kind of how people talked about Ernie Carpenter. I recorded that with my trio, the Mountain Drifters. We added chords to it and all that kind of stuff, but just standing on its own, it's a really pretty tune. I'll just leave that one with you. So this went way too quickly for me. Thoughts, questions, requests? I see that somebody wants to see the names of the tunes. The two tunes we learned, I'm going to type them in there right now. The first one was Black Cat in a Briar Patch, and that was Melvin Wine. And the second one was Shelving Rock, John Johnson. And I'll send all that stuff to you. I guess this is the reality for a while. I'm going to do 2 more workshops like this in this series, and do some Eastern Kentucky stuff next time. And the time after that, I think it's maybe some singing with the fiddle, if you're into that, which is a thing with me. I would love to have any kind of suggestions, constructive criticism, how you think I can make this better, or as my friend says, constrictive criticism. And this is all a work in progress, especially teaching remotely like this. I feel like I'm here with you, but the one thing that I really, really wish we could do is the thing we can't do, which is to play together. So I need that feedback. And make the workshop last for 4 hours. Okay. Deal. What's that?
No, I was just laughing.
Oh, good. Yeah, this has been great. I'll be back next week. And if there's interest in this, maybe we can keep it going. I mean, it's just fun to get together and just bat these tunes around. And when this awful, horrible thing is over, maybe we can even be in the same place at one time and actually play them. I just think about how I learned. I went to my first Fiddlers Convention, Gay Likes Fiddlers Convention in 19, 1974, and I'd only been playing the fiddle about 6 months, and I'd sat outside the big jam circle of people, and listened to them play a tune, and every time I knew the tune was going to come around a whole lot of times, so every time it would come around, I'd grab a couple of notes, and then it would come around again, and I'd add a couple of notes to that. And that was kind of how I taught myself, what those of you who learn music in by ear like this in the oral tradition, you know this already. But we all have to have kind of a process for ourselves. And to some people, the melody comes the easiest. To some people, it's the phrasing or just the rhythmic pulse, the melodic rhythm of the tune, if you want to call it that. Everybody's got to kind of discover. The challenge for me as a teacher is to try and say the same thing 2 or 3 or 4 different ways and hope that one of them makes sense to somebody. But that's that. So I listened to this tune is a Gid Tanner and the Skillet Lickers tune called "Liberty Off the Corn Liquor Still," and by the time they played it 10 or 12 or 15 times, I almost had it. And then this guy who was in the circle kind of spotted me, and I was just a kid, and he came over and showed me the rest of the tune, and his name was George Ainley, and he saved my life, and that's kind of how you wrap yourself around this stuff, why they call it social music, I guess. But we do the best we can in this situation, and I'm really, really happy that you came. Hope you'll come back. And I will follow up with an email with some things to listen to, a little playlist, and some additional information. But, if you have questions about what we did today, write to me. It's just brucemolsky@gmail.com. I'm easy to find.
And I'll have that email address when I forward the recording of this in an unlisted YouTube link.
Cool.
And in honor of today's workshop, I pulled out my Clark Kessinger.
All right.
Kessinger records.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
If you have a moment after this is over, go up on YouTube and search for Clark Kessinger, Sally Johnson. There's a film of him from the Newport Folk Festival from I guess the 50s or 60s with two guitar players playing it amazingly and doing a little dance step at the end, and it's just totally worth seeing.
That's great.
So, yeah. And the next time we get together, if we really get together, I will share some of my discard sourdough scones with you, which I've been secretly eating this whole time. If you like bread baking, I'm telling everybody, I started a bread baking group for roots music lovers on Facebook. It's called Fiddle and Dough. Not Fiddle and Bow, but Fiddle and Dough. And we got about 350 members now, and it's really a lot of fun. So if you got something to do.
Bruce, I'm expecting a baby, and all I want is carbs, and there's nothing I love more than fresh bread. And I spotted you. I was like, I bet that's a fresh baked piece of bread, and it made me hungry.
It's discard. I save the discard from feeding my sourdough starter every day, and when I get enough of it, I can make scones. I make crackers,
Nice.
incredible pancakes. There's all kinds of stuff, So the tail is wagging the dog now. The discard is almost more important than the sourdough itself, and make bread. So, yeah, you don't have to be pregnant to crave carbs.
I know, but I just crave them more now. I'm just hungry all the time.
Amazing. That's great. Well, thank you all so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Great to see you, and see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.